So the topic of our discussion is that cricket is cricket hampering the growth of other sports in India? I slightly accept with this statement because uh, cricket is a very easy to play sport and it just requires a bat and a ball and it could be played anywhere, just like the concept of gully cricket. And there are a lot of children who play gully cricket. A lot of people follow the sport, and hence the sport gets more popularity and more marketing, and hence it gets an edge when compared to the other sports. Uh, and the players present in the cricket scenario also have much more popularity than the players present in other sports when it comes to India. And hence, I believe that it is slightly hampering the growth of other sports in India.
Yes,
I
I
would
too
dis
agree that cricket is hampering the growth of other sports in India. As you can see, there are unequal funding. Like cricket receives a disappropriate share of sponsorship and funding, whereas the other sports do not even get any funding. Then there is also many media coverages covering only cricket and not other sports like hockey or football.
I feel that is a clear example of demand versus supply, where we can see the viewerships of peak cricket tournaments such as IPL for say, where the viewership is astronomically high, and hence the sponsorships also come in huge numbers because they get the value out of those sponsorships compared to other leagues in our country which do not get. And as for the statement said, cricket is a easy sport to play. I would disagree with that. Any sport played on a very basic level could be called easy, but once you get into technicalities of terms, when you need to know how to set up, how to set the pitch, how to set the field, which ball to bowl, which setup to perform, even in a sport like cricket, it's a very complicated game, which I would say from personal experience of playing it. And as per regarding the hampering of other sports in this country, yes, it does get inappropriate funding from various organizations. But that again consider we again have to consider the revenue it brings, and hence that is to somewhat an extent justifiable.
Um,
Also,
would I would like to disagree with the fact. Okay, so there's a the fact that cricket is given a lot of recognition and other sports aren't. I think that is changing, especially with the advent of social media. For example, the chess world champion this year came out of our country, and he has received enough recognition for that. Everyone knows his name at this point. Similarly, even during the Olympics, especially the Paralympics, a lot of medals were won by our country, and we proudly spoke about that. So I agree that cricket is a very big market. That being said, I don't think that cricket alone is responsible for the sport or for other sports not to be able to develop per se. And yes, there is a large sum that is given for the cricket develop to the cricket market, but there is also a more initiative that has started towards other sports, and I think that it is going to take some time, but it is developing. Like the people in India are developing their interest towards other fields of sports as well.
Yes, completely. I feel cricket is seen as a religion in our country because we have had figures who act like God for them. For example, for the generation before it is for Sachin Tendulkar. For us, it's Virat Kohli. We had Mahendra Singh Dhoni as a leader in between. These people popularized and revolutionized the sport in our country, and hence got a lot of us into watching it. I remember this popular saying, "जब तक सचिन है, तब तक टीवी ऑफ नहीं होते," and जब तक धोनी क्रीज पे है, हम लोग we have a hope. And that is why we all were glued to our TV sets to watch this sport. And the same can be said for some famous icons in other sports as well. I feel a lot of people who don't even watch football know of Sunil Chhetri, who was the Indian captain who just retired recently last year. And a lot of us didn't even watch football, if we are being honest like that. But we knew of Sunil Chhetri, and he popularized the sport to a lot extent in our country. So I feel cricket definitely does have an edge over other sports because of the high performance we are expected as a country. But at the same time, if we get figures who can revolutionize other sports in our country as well, it will help young kids to pick up that dream as well. As rightly said about the World Chess Championship right now too.
adding to that, but I think that the average person might know a lot of cricket players' names, as you just mentioned, but we just know about Sunil Chhetri. The average person might just know about Sunil Chhetri. I think there's a lot of lack of recognition that's changing because of the advent of social media. was said earlier. But I think the lack of awareness and the lack of recognition also hampers a lot of individuals from taking up this sport. If you just look at the grassroots level itself, in schools, PE teachers usually divert their efforts into selecting students for regional tournaments of cricket rather than even promoting other students who might have interest in other sports like football, badminton, basketball, or anything else. I think that efforts are mainly focused in one area because there's hope of success. There's more probability of success in a certain region because it is as popularized as it is. But as you just mentioned, and I think we've just realized now, we know about GK, we know about a lot of things, but the average person will just know of a lot of cricket names, but a few football names or basketball names or badminton names. So I think that needs to change. And for now, at least, I think cricket is actually hampering the advent of other sports and promotion of other sports in the country.
I'd like to
Okay,
I'd
but
like to
to
disagree
bring
with
it.
the. Okay, sorry. Yeah, go ahead.
Thank you, Sudha. No, I just wanted to bring one point, which is when we are talking about one sport hampering the other in any country, India is our topic. I understand that, but just to draw a parallel here, realistically, isn't that the case with every country? Like take US for example, NFL is the most popular sport there. It's their version of football, which probably globally isn't even as recognized, and they play. It's not even an not even a tournament between countries, but it's still the most popular sport there. I think every country does have a sport that is the most celebrated, gets the most sponsorship, gets the most revenue. That is not to say other sports shouldn't be promoted, but I feel like that is something that's going to be a part. You cannot have every sport to be at the same level. One is always going to be popular among the crowd. Maybe it's because of the tournaments that were won previously. Even for cricket, for example, before 83, it might have been a known sport, but it wasn't ever this popular or this liked. It's since we started winning championships. And the same has happened. Like badminton used to be very popular when Saina Nehwal was playing. Same for tennis with Sania Mirza or javelin with Neeraj Chopra. Like it's sometimes the players who win get the glory, and I feel that's the case with any country. You can never have every sport to be on the equal level, or there'll always be some sports that are more popular. Even now when we are talking, we will say badminton is not as popular, football is not as popular, but then people will bring up ice hockey if you make these sports popular. Like there will be sports popular, which will be more popular than others, is basically what I'm trying to say. I don't think that it's an exclusive event having one sport that can hamper the others. I think they can coexist, but yes, the popularity will definitely vary.
So when you speak about
I
the America and the NFL and their football team, they also have baseball, which is a very big sport for them. So over there, I understand that you're trying to draw a comparison, but it's not just one sport that they are focusing on, and they do have gymnastics also that they pay equal attention to. It's not that they are only focusing on just one sport that is bringing in revenue. Other than that, there was a point mentioned about schools only. Sending players for cricket tournaments. I don't believe that to be true. There are a lot of people who actually have won state level, national level championships in badminton, chess, tennis, even in just marathon, the sprint races. So football championships, there are state level football championships, national level football championships. They wouldn't have existed if schools did not actually take up their students to uh, uh, work in these areas and to actually train in these areas. So I agree that there is this notion that schools that everyone is only promoting cricket, but at a school level, it is up to the child and his interests that most schools take into the picture.
I believe that in previous years, a few years before us, the cricket was very much promoted in the schools, but that notion is for sure changing because there are multiple sports where which multiple students are involved in, and hence they get a hold of other sports as well. But there is always a problem of infrastructure as well, which comes for other sports. We see that there are a lot of cricket grounds and cricket coaching equipment being available uh, in our country, and there are multiple people working on the development of multiple other equipment as well for the promotion of the sport. And we also see that a lot of children uh, would rather prefer to go to cricket coaching when it comes to playing a sport, and hence I also believe that cricket coaching also uh, is responsible for hampering the growth of other sports in India.
I definitely concur with
When
the fact that
okay,
this notion of only promotion of cricket in schools is changing. But if we were to look at it, there are a lot of, as infrastructure was mentioned, a lot of schools do not have the infrastructure. They lack the infrastructure. But if we were just to look at sports that require the same amount of infrastructure as cricket, maybe football, or no, I'm not even talking about a racket sport. I'm just talking about of a sport like football where a ball is required. Teachers who often have experience in certain sports like cricket, because it is such a popularized sport, and hence they tend to promote this in schools. And even though it's changing, if we were just to look at it on a majority scale, a lot of schools still continue to only not just promote cricket but promote it on a major level. They would like to select students, they would like to make it more easy, they would like to make it easier for students to come into cricket and play for their school instead of other sports. So it's not just that they are promoting only cricket or they are discouraging students from going into other fields. It's just that what are they promoting more? And if they are promoting one sport
Uh,
more, students are likelier to get more influenced by that instead of demotivated by choosing another sport.
I feel I've seen the difference on the ground level. Well, I've seen difference in the cash prizes for the same organizing community organizing a football tournament and a cricket tournament, and the cash prizes for the cricket tournaments were high compared to the football tournaments. But that did not make the competition any less in the football tournament as well. But again, that brings the point. I feel that it's as simple as demand versus supply. Cricket brings in the revenue, and hence they can expect to spurge that much money on it compared to other sports which do not. But I still do believe that football is definitely rising in our country, especially in tier one cities where we can see so many turfs. Because of lack of space, people have started not playing the conventional 11v11 football, but started playing the 5v5, 6v6 football on turfs where turfs are booked day in and night out. But at the same time, I feel cricket definitely on a national level is getting the chunk of our revenue. Is getting the chunk of the revenue budget, sports budget allocation, but it is also making that revenue. So I feel it's fair on the point of the sport being globalized more to help our country also be represented more globally. But at the same time, other sports should also be encouraged.
I'd also like to add that even though cricket is so famous, there are some sports that are played at the grassroots level. Something like kabaddi. If you go into a tier two, tier three city, there are local championships of kabaddi that take place regularly till date, and we have had champions come out in that field. Despite cricket being so big, we've had Olympic winners also who have won in those fields. So uh, I agree that cricket is a big market and obviously is bringing a lot of revenue for a country, which is great. But I don't think that it's responsible for hampering the growth of other sports specifically. They can Other sports may not be as big, but they can coexist.
Yeah, the biggest reason for the popularity and all of the other reasons is the cultural impact it has had. And I personally, I think the biggest thing which has played a part in this is the success stories which has been associated with cricket. And it's not 1 or 2 years, it's history, it's hundreds of years of history. There's a very be it movies, be it international championships, the 83 World Cup, the Indian population sees it as an identifier. It put them on the on the international market, on the face, on the sorry, on the international space as with the face of cricket. Recently, so I think as uh, the popularity as people start winning. I get it. It's not the fault of players not winning. That is not a reason. But as people start winning, as India gets more recognition internationally, it gets more associated with other sports. I think this will grow. For an example, like recently during the Olympics, I'm not sure, but I'd seen an article about this when there was the Indian sports hockey team on the airport, and there was an influencer, and people completely ignored the the hockey team, and chose to take pictures with the influencer. On the other hand, we recently saw when the International World Championship winner came back to India, the kind of welcome he received. So I think as uh, the investment is not there yet, but there are a lot of government initiatives such as Halo India and other organizations slowly investing. And I think over a period of time, it will start gaining popularity. But uh,
Um,
At the time, I think it's difficult to coexist when the same opportunities are not present for each sport. I do agree that there's a bigger market share for cricket and it's more popularized, it's more globalized in India at least. But at the same time, when we're saying that it's possible for each sport to coexist because we're looking at tier 2, tier 3 cities where kabaddi or kho or maybe any other sport is being promoted, it's not the same because the same opportunities are not present. The probability of getting successful in this field is not the same, and hence saying that they can coexist and that cricket is not hampering the other sport, it's just not right in my opinion.
I also feel
I'm
that
also trying to.
saying that they can. Yeah, go ahead,
I'm
Snigdha.
sorry. Go ahead. Okay, what I wanted to say was there is awareness being created about other sports through the portal of media as well. I mean, the entertainment industry is investing in it. There are successful movies like we had Bhag Milkha Bhag, we had Dangal, which actually focused on other sports that are not cricket, that were actually such blockbusters and brought the attention of the general population towards these sports. Now, cricket still existed, but people got invested in these sports after watching these movies, right? They still existed, they still were thriving. So I am not saying that they are as big, but they do coexist.
And also, it doesn't have to be a binary thing. Obviously, people can like a lot of sports at the same time. Also, I don't think we need to, uh, like, in a way, blame a sport that has gotten us international level of popularity for at the sake of other sports. We can try uplifting other sports and try to make them as popular as cricket. I think that would be a more ideal way to achieve what we want to achieve, instead of trying to like take revenue from cricket and put it in other sports.
I completely agree with
But
Ronak. We Yeah, go ahead.
uh, but I believe that even though there is a lot of revenue that is, uh, we see that even there is a lot of revenue coming into the sport cricket, because we also see that a lot of parents talk about cricket rather than other sports, uh, because they have been exposed to a lot of cricket through their times. Everyone knows who Kapil Dev is because of the World Championship, and we also know that India has put a lot of efforts to win various cricket World Championships, and hence we also know a lot of old players in the cricket domain, and hence I believe that this also is a reason which uh, motivates the hampering of other sports apart from cricket.
I also agree
But
with
that
Ronak
brings
in
us.
the sense that, yes, sorry, please continue.
No, I just wanted to say that the statement that we know Kapil Dev because he won the championship brings us to a point we've already discussed, whereby popularity comes from wins, like we knew about Sania Nehwal because of how she won. So, saying that cricket is responsible for not letting other sports thrive, we have examples of how uh, sportsmen and sportswomen have achieved success in their fields despite cricket being there.
I was saying that because it has a longer history when compared to other sports, and even our older generations talk about it. That is what helps it to define a more uh, more share in the revenue when compared to other sports.
But that's That not is not true. necessarily a. I would not agree that it is older. It has more history. The history itself, as you say, history comes from us winning those championships, which makes it memorable. If we never won, we would have never spoken about it in the terms of history, or we would never have reached these heights in that sport. If we were mediocre at that sport, like other sports in the country, it would just be one of those sports, and we would have the next closest sport we would have to be champions. Exactly. If today, because chess is do, if we are doing well in chess, or
other sports and we go grow up and talk to others about it, I don't think we'll say that why are we talking about chess and javelin now and cricket. There should be more also. Like it's there are too many sports, and I think that winning does play a part because it's what makes the sport memorable to people, because it creates that feeling of euphoria that people remember and get to celebrate and cherish. I think that leaves a lasting impact, which is why people grow up to talk about it also.
Okay. Vidhi, please summarize the discussion. Vidhi, can you hear me? Switch on your mic, Vidhi. Please summarize the discussion. We can't hear you. Shubham, please summarize.
Yes, sir. So the topic was, is cricket hampering the growth of other sports in India? So there were many points being spoken. Like there was unequal funding, then there was more media coverage for cricket, which is hampering the growth of other sports in India. Then there were also many points added, like since it is popular in India, like sorry, it totally depends upon the popularity. Like in US, NFL is popular. Then there were also points being raised, like since cricket generates huge amount of revenue than other sports, therefore this is why cricket is more popular in India. Then there are also many big cash prizes which the players who play cricket are getting. Then there was also a point like many other sports like futsal and turf have been promoted. Yeah, this is my summary.
Ayushi, please summarize.
The topic was, is cricket hampering the growth of other colleges in India? We started the discussion with various factors uh, which might play a role in this, such as cricket has a lot of media coverage. There's a very high amount of investment in cricket. This can in turn be contributed to the high viewership cricket gets. The more the reason for investment is that the revenue is also very high, which is how they can justify it. Um, then we talked about how there may be certain, some people have the view that cricket might be hampering entry into other sports at school or college level. But then we also discussed how this might be because people are just more familiar with it. Schools, colleges might have more resources for the same. It is not necessary that they're purposefully uh, hampering the entry. Uh,
Okay.
uh,
Ayush, please summarize. Ayush,
So the topic of our today's discussion was uh, is cricket hampering the growth of other sports in India? We started the discussion with that cricket could be played anywhere, and it introduces concept of gully cricket, and hence it is very popular, and a lot of people follow the sport. There were multiple points put forward in support of this, uh, in support of the statement that cricket is hampering the growth of other sports. There is unequal funding, unequal sponsorships. There is a lot of media coverage, uh, that it generates more revenue when compared to other sports. Uh, it There were also points put forward that said that a lot of people know more about cricket, and know more about the sports person present in cricket, and we also came to the point that schools also promote cricket more when compared to other sports, and a lot of incentives are also given to cricket when compared to other sports. We also had a discussion wherein we thought that it is very specific to a country on what sport it promotes. And apart from that, we discussed that the infrastructure also is a determining factor for cricket, because uh, for cricket hampering the growth of other sports. There were also a few points which were not in support of this statement, that there are multiple players coming up in other domains of sports as well and are excelling in these sports, and there are multiple movies as well which are being introduced on various sports and is getting awareness to people of various sports in the society. There were also a few points that said that the sponsorship people put a lot of money into the sport, and the money they make out of this is also justified, and hence the popularity of cricket is justified. Our ultimate discussion was more slightly tilted towards the opinion that cricket is hampering the growth of other sports in India.
Okay, try to keep your summary within 1 minute. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Manya.
So today we discussed about whether cricket was hampering the growth of other sports in any the country. So we started with how the cricket gets a lot of media coverage, how it is globalized, how it is popularized in India. Now, some things were talked about. Some things that were said for it were that at the grassroots level, um, the sport might not. This sport is hugely promoted because of familiarity with the sport, both at the faculty side and both the student side, and how lack of infrastructure might also be another factor promoting this sport, which is cricket. Now, something that was said against this was that because of the advent of social media, things are slightly changing. Funds are also being divested to other fields in this industry, which are maybe football or badminton or basketball. So things are slowly changing. But for now, if we were to talk about it, things were summarized as factors like media coverage, globalization, and how huge names make the sport popular. And it is not right to blame a sport in general, but see the various factors that are promoting or discouraging it. And that was the topic of a discussion today.
Vidhi, do you want to summarize, Vidhi?
Yes, sir.
Hmm.
Today we discussed about whether cricket is hampering the growth of other sports or not. So definitely we discussed uh, that cricket is indeed hampering the growth of other sports in our country. It's bitter, but it's true that we can easily find children playing cricket anywhere, but hardly you can find children playing hockey or other sports.
Okay, when you summarize, you have to say what the group discussed. So try to make a note of it. I think Shubham, you also need to make notes. Your summary was not good. Manya, you spoke okay, but again, you did not have many points to say, huh? And you're speaking too fast. That is,
Okay, I'll take that into consideration.
you have to speak slowly so that there's no hurry to speak, huh?
Okay.
I will have to open up now. Okay. I think
Yes, sir.
Ronak, you had, I mean, you said the best thing initially that every country has their own favorite sport and all that. But then after
Yeah.
that, for the next 8 or 10 minutes, you didn't say anything. In a GD, you have to be in the GD for some time, okay?
Yes,
Increase.
sir. Yes,
Ah,
sir.
just
Yeah, yes.
said was very nice, but then you have to
Yeah.
follow it up with examples like everybody else was doing that.
Yeah,
Okay.
sure, sir.
I think Shubham, you need to improve. Vijay, you need to improve. You have to say what everybody else said in a summary. A few things that may have been added, like hockey has been promoted by the Odisha ex-Odisha Chief Minister Biju Patnaik. So now we have some respect in hockey after a long time. Before cricket, it was hockey that we were good at, and it was rumored that Dhyan Chand used to play with the umbrella stick and all that. I don't know how far that is true, but there seems to be a legend that Dhyan Chand was offered a high post in the military by Hitler, which he refused. So hockey was the favorite sport in India before cricket, but slowly due to change of rules and whatever, the popularity started waning. But and then we were really not very good at it in the last 2 or 3 decades. Over the last 3 4 years, we have again come up. Similarly, football has been sponsored majorly by Vijay Mallya. I think then there is a Kabaddi League also going on on television. So things are moving. Then all these sports personalities from Haryana in shot put, in javelin, and other strength-based athletics, I think the Mittals have set up some training center in Haryana, because of which all these things are happening and things are changing and people are being attracted to other sports. Because everybody may not have the proclivity to play good cricket as a batsman or a bowler, so somebody may be a good wrestler or whatever. There have been horror stories about Indian teams going for the Olympics or for their Olympic training, and they did not even have water to have a bath, and they used to have to carry their water in the bucket. And the administrative staff which went with them, the bureaucrats and all who sort of ruled the sports, they used to stay in air-conditioned rooms, and the athletes were put in uh, one room, five, six of them together, and they had to play without shoes and stuff like that. So we cannot blame cricket for all these mismanagement, corruption, or whatever you may call it. And these are real stories. It has been shown on television news also sometimes. And cricket is an autonomous body. The BCCI is an autonomous body. There is no government interference in BCCI. But all the other sports that we have talked about, they have federations, and the federations are under the sports ministry of the Indian government and stuff like that. So why should we blame cricket for what is not happening in other sports? That's all I had to add. Would you like to comment on each other's participation? Whom did you like or whom did you not like, and what is the reason for that? Are all of you saying that everybody participated equally well? Okay, let's give some feedback to, let's say, Gurkirat. What do you have to say about his participation? Yes, some feedback on Gurkirat.
I think Gurkirat was bringing good opinion to the table and was able to participate appropriately into the discussion, I believe.
Anything particularly liked about him or did not like about him?
Uh, I don't have anything to say in specific, but I think he was overall good.
Overall, he did a good job. What about,
Yeah.
uh, yeah, some feedback for Snigdha, somebody? Gurkirat, what do you have to say about Snigdha?
I feel her points were valid and she had a nice way to say about it. And when if somebody else, like if two people had at the same time, she was kind enough to let the other person go first and then go after it, both the times it occurred.
Some feedback for, let's say, Rona? Anybody? Yeah, Snigdha, what do you have to say about Rona?
I think she brought in an interesting aspect where she actually expanded the discussion beyond the title per se. So that was something that, like the NFL thing, even though I was countering it, it was a very interesting point that came into the picture that I hadn't thought of.
Okay. Yeah, Rona, what about Ayush?
Um, yeah, I think that he spoke like quite a lot of number of times. Like it felt more like a discussion on his part. Like he was interacting and engaging a lot with the group, which I thought was a very nice thing.
Yeah, okay. Somebody give some feedback for Manya, please. Yeah, Ayushi, what about Manya?
So I remember the overall discussion. I'm sorry, I don't remember who said what.
But you have to know that, okay?
Yeah,
You
yeah,
have to
I'll
be
make
more
note of it.
attentive that way. Yeah, Ronak, would you like
Mhm.
to say something to Manya?
Yeah, actually, I think like the points were good, but I like really liked her style of delivery. The way she was putting the points, I thought that it was very well put and very well worded.
Fluency, you are saying fluency as well. Yeah,
Yes,
good
very
period. What about
selective.
Ayush?
I feel his points were valid, and he had a when like, he had a good say over those points, and he stuck to what he felt was the right decision on the topic, which I liked.
Okay, fine. So today we'll stop here. Tomorrow I hope to have an interesting discussion if at least six of you are there. One thing that you would have noticed is this discussion went on for about 20 minutes, 20-22 minutes with eight of you and six of you taking part. Okay. And I think by the end of it, you had exhausted all your points. So in any discussion, which is usually for 15 minutes with eight people, all of them will be participating. You need to speak for 2-3 minutes, and that should be sufficient for you. But try to be in the discussion throughout. Don't like say something and then just relax. Okay, try to be in the discussion, try to react, try to interact. Okay. So today we'll stop here, and tomorrow, hopefully, if 6-7 of you are there, we'll have an interesting case. Good night.
Thank you, sir.
Thank
Good
you,
night,
sir.
sir.
Thank you,
Thank
sir.
you.
Thank you, sir.